Okay, so welcome to section 5.3, the double angle and half angle formulas. So the double angle, and half angle formulas. Okay, so let's recall. That cosine of alpha plus beta, the sum for cosine, had the opposite SIGN. So we know cosine puts himself first, cosine alpha, cosine beta, and then he changes the sign. So it's minus sine alpha, sine beta. Okay, given that, let's consider cosine of 2 theta. Well, I claim that that's cosine of theta plus theta, which means I can write this as cosine of the first times cosine of the second minus sine of the first times sine of the second. That is, I can write this as cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta. Let's also recall that sine of alpha plus beta. Actually, should I use a different color for this one? I think I will, so it's not so monochromatic. Let's use this bright red. Sine of alpha plus beta, sine of the first, cosine of the second, and then the same sine plus sine of the second, cosine of the first. Okay, so now let's consider in a different orange. No, I'll leave it the same orange. So let's consider sine of 2 theta. So sine of 2 theta. Once again, I'm going to break this up into sine of theta plus theta. So using the formula above, it's sine of the first, theta, times cosine of the second, theta, plus sine of the second, theta, times cosine of the first, theta. So that is, I have 2 of sine theta times cosine theta. Let's also recall that tangent of alpha plus beta was the quotient, tangent of alpha plus tangent of beta, all over 1 minus the product, tangent of alpha times tangent of beta. Okay, so let's consider tangent of 2 theta. Well, that's going to be tangent of the quantity, theta plus theta. So that will be tangent of the first, theta, plus tangent of the second, theta, all divided by 1 minus tangent of the first, theta, times tangent of the second, theta. Okay, so do you agree there are 2 tangent thetas in the numerator divided by 1 minus tangent squared theta in the denominator? Okay, so let's recap all of this. The double angle formulas. So double angle formulas. Double angle formulas. Okay, so we have cosine of 2 theta is cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta. Now be careful. This is not the main Pythagorean identity. There's a minus, not a plus, so be very careful with that. Sine of 2 theta is 2 sine theta cosine theta. That's one of my favorites. Actually, let me put one line in between each of these. And last but not least, we have that tangent of 2 theta is the quotient 2 tangent theta, so much like sine, it's got the 2, over 1 minus tangent squared theta, so much like cosine in the denominator, it has a square. So for example, so use the double angle formulas to evaluate. So use the double angle formulas to evaluate the following. Okay, so number 1. Let's say we have cosine squared of the quantity of 5 pi over 12 minus sine squared of the same quantity, 5 pi over 12. So we want to recall, I'm going to recall in a lighter pink. Hello, kitty. So let's recall that cosine of 2 theta is cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta. Okay, so let's go to what we were given. So we were given cosine squared of 5 pi over 12 minus sine squared of 5 pi over 12. So according to the rule above, that's going to be cosine of twice the angle 5 pi over 12. It's the double angle formula. So that reduces, 2 over 12 reduces to 6. So cosine of 5 pi over 6 is the 30-degree reference angle in quadrant 2. So that's negative root 3 over 2. Okay, let's do number 2. Let's say we have 4 sine of pi over 12 cosine of pi over 12. Okay, so we want to recall. That sine of twice an angle, so let me put 2 in purple, twice an angle is 2 sine of the angle theta times cosine of the angle theta. Okay, so what are we given? We're given 4 times sine of pi over 12 times cosine of pi over 12. Well, I claim that that's going to be 2 times a quantity, 2 sine of pi over 12 cosine of pi over 12. So what that will give us is twice sine of twice the angle, namely twice pi over 12. And I know that 2 goes into 12 6 times, so this becomes 2 times sine of pi over 6. So pi over 6 is a 30-degree reference angle, which means that this is 2 times 1/2 the y-coordinate. So finally, I get 1. Okay, and the last little example before I stop this section, or this video rather, will be 2 tangent of pi over 6 divided by the quantity, 1 minus tangent squared of pi over 6. Okay, so let's recall. Tangent of twice an angle, 2 theta, is given as twice tangent theta divided by 1 minus tangent squared theta. So we were given, let me do this in green, I need a different color, 2 tangent of pi over 6 divided by 1 minus tangent squared of pi over 6. So according to the formula, that should be tangent of twice the angle, which in this case is pi over 6. Okay, so 2 goes into 6 3 times, so that's tangent of pi over 3, which of course is the square root of 3.